What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Shout out to Mowgli in the background. Mowgli, hey! What's going on, lads? Welcome back to the channel. I'm in my kitchen, so apologies if there is a slight echo. I haven't soundproofed my kitchen for this video, believe it or not. So we're just going to have to maybe deal with that because, you know, I've been changing the setup around a lot in my office lately. And kitchen's honestly just nice. A lot of space allows the lens to do its magic and, you know, make things look nice. So anyway, that's completely besides the point. Last night, I finally got to see TesseracT live. They played to a sold-out show in Dublin city centre in the Academy venue. I had my ticket bought for this event when they were first released because I was like, I don't want to miss this show. Obviously, I'm in that position where I can kind of get in touch with labels, or in a lot of instances, I'm, you know, pretty close to, well, not pretty close, but there's some relationships that you build over time when you make these videos and they get X amount of views. Naturally, they're going to be seen by an audience, and then the audience might send it to the band members, and then the band members might reach out. And I've had, you know, small moments of contacts back and forth between some of the members of TesseracT, mainly Dan and Ackle. So, like, you know, naturally I was kind of like, I can either go as a fan to this event, or I can go as a non-traditional member of the media, which I spoke about in my Polaris video when Polaris came to Dublin, where I just felt like such an imposter. And there was an element of that as well last night, which I'll, you know, touch on again when we get into it a little bit more. But yeah, so I had my ticket bought, and then me and Dan had spoken back and forth not too long ago on Twitch, and then Ackle as well briefly, where I kind of mentioned, you know, that I would bring my camera to the event because Ackle had seen my Meshuggah video when Meshuggah came to Dublin, and I did a whole podcast, and Ackle was pretty high on the idea of me bringing the camera along just from our brief conversation again. So I was like, yeah, look, this will be something that I'll do. I'll bring the camera along. And again, acting as a non-traditional member of the media is always something that's quite weird for me because I don't really know how to use a camera. I just have made videos for a couple of years now, and I've always upgraded my stuff. So now I don't have the like technical knowledge of how to like shoot live events and stuff. And then you just find yourself again in the photo pit, you know, pretending to be one of these like traditional media guys, and I just feel like quite out of place, which is still something I have to get used to. A little bit better last night compared to the Polaris gig, but anyway, point being is that I had my ticket for the event in case nothing happened, but Dan did actually reach out like a day before the event. It would have been Monday, I think, and Dan just was like, you know, you still come to the show, yada yada yada, do you need like a guest pass and anything? And I was like, look, it's just, if I can bring my camera in, that would be great. And yeah, so we got all that sorted, and you know, I went on the day. I met up with a pal of mine that I've met at like previous shows. I actually met him at the Meshuggah gig. His name is Alex. Shout out to Alex. I think I've mentioned him a couple of times on this channel before, maybe in other videos. I think I mentioned him. Yeah, I would have mentioned him in the Meshuggah video. But me and Alex have gone to one or two other gigs together. We were at Gojira when Gojira came to Dublin as well. So you know, just that kind of guy that I meet up, because I don't have any friends that listen to the same music as me, you know, as religiously as I do, and you know, there'd be no one that I'd really go to shows with. So we met up beforehand to grab a drink. We went to the Black Sheep pub in Dublin, which is like a, you know, less than 10-minute walk to the actual venue, and it was great to catch up with him. We got to the venue a little bit early. I went in with Alex to you know, I went in to get my like press pass or whatever, which again is still hilarious to me. I'm like, press, like the term press has lost all value if I'm considered press at this point, but you know, I guess it's technically press, you know, this is still media. Went in, got my press pass, went in, Callistale Boys were playing. I'd heard like one or two tracks by the Callistale Boys before, and not really for me. I knew they weren't going to be for me from what I've heard. They're like a math fucking core slash, they're chaotic. They have like, I think 2 violins. I wasn't paying too much attention to it, to be honest. I was trying to scout out different locations to get shots when Unprocessed and TesseracT actually came on stage, because the venue compared to the Polaris gig was a lot different in terms of how it was laid out, because this show was sold out, whereas the Polaris one, now that I look back on it, was nowhere near capacity because the entire upstairs balcony was completely closed for Polaris. So I had that entire row for myself to like be upstairs and get some shots, whereas with the TesseracT gig, it was all open for everyone. So you know, I went in at like 7, 20 past 7, half 7, I don't know exactly when it was, when the doors opened, and it was already pretty packed out with people upstairs, you know, having drinks. So it was a little bit harder to get shots, but I obviously was able to make it into the press pass when bands started to kick off, so like Unprocessed and TesseracT. So yeah, I heard Callistale Boys on in the background. They don't sound like they're a band for me. little bit more chaotic, but you know, they seem to be getting the crowd going to a certain extent. They're very energetic, high energy stuff. So I guess if you're into that, the moshing and the chaos and the maths core and whatever kind of subgenre you want to split them into, I don't know. Anyone I've kind of asked don't really have a straight answer for what their style is overall. But that was the Calisteo boys. Then Unprocessed came on, and I had brief contact with Manuel before when the Unprocessed's latest album came out. The, what's it called? Everything Became Something in This, and Everything in Between. I don't know why I went there, but and Everything in Between. When that album came out, I had some contact with Manuel, and super nice guy from what I'd seen. And you know, he'd kind of suggested if I had the, you know, backstage pass or access or anything like that, that we'd grab a drink. But you know what, I always say it in these style videos, I never like to go, even if I get this access, I really just go off of if the band kind of goes out of their way to say, like, you know, let's meet up or let's have a drink. I'll go with them, of course, because it's, you know, who would turn down the opportunity. But I'm not going to be that guy that goes out of his way to, you know, hey man, like, I'm waiting for you here. Like, I mean, I'll chill around for a bit after and see what happens, but you know, we'll get into all that a little bit later on. So Unprocessed came on. I got into the front row with my camera again, pretending to be media. I'll have some of the clips from, you know, what I got. I haven't really looked at the clips yet, but from what I got, I'm pretty sure they're not too bad. And, you know, got in there, got some shots. Unprocessed sounded absolutely amazing. Again, I'd never seen Unprocessed before as well. And I'm like, I haven't been following the band for too long, so I wouldn't have known some of the songs. The only albums I've heard by them are Artificial Void and their latest album. So I know they had Gold as well, which I think was their kind of experimental album that maybe some fans took to and some fans didn't. But they played, you know, a nice variety, a really good like warm up for TesseracT, because their sound is very explosive, very energetic, but also has that like genty, fun, and almost like some pop elements in there as well. So a very, very well suited sound, I think, overall for, you know, warming up a band like TesseracT. So yeah, crowd were loving Unprocessed. They sounded absolutely amazing. Manuel, absolutely fantastic. Drums were clean. Bass, everything about the band, phenomenal. Like, you know, when you hear the tracks on the record and how raw the sound is overall, that's what I liked about the record as well. That their sound was very, very raw. And, you know, Manuel's vocals were produced very, like, not in that like modern production way that it's really crisp and it just sounds robotic. It was like still had that grit to it, which was really, really nice. And it translated very well, because if it was too pristine when you heard it on the record, I think when you go and finally listen to them live, you might find it a little bit jarring because of how pristine the actual sound is. But the live sound honestly wasn't too far off what it sounds like on the record. Like Manuel's vocals have that like real raspy crispness to it that you get on the record, and then the guitars are very distorted in a way that's, I guess, not perfectly pristine. It has that, again, that grit to it, which sounds fucking great. And just to be able to actually hear how technical they are on the record and then seeing them pull it off live is like a testament to how fucking good they are, because you're like, okay, well, how are they going to play this live? Because it's so insane. And it's funny to see like that people think that, you know, Manuel's been, you know, faking his guitar clips, and, you know, it's just, when you go see them live, you just have to kind of see them to understand. But Unprocessed were fantastic. And then that led us on to TesseracT, which obviously came on after, and the show was phenomenal. You know, the stage presence, absolutely amazing, very, very professional. You know, I expected nothing less. I'd heard nothing but good things about this show. Like, people have been blowing me up all week, like, you know, sending me the sold out show. They're like, oh my god, like they've sold out the last show, and they just delivered, man. I mean, I could sit here all day and speak about the breakdown. Being honest, when I went into the set, I seen, it's not, my camera just went off, never mind. I seen the set list, and to be honest, I was kind of like not that excited based on what I'd seen from the set lists, because there was some tracks that I'm really a big fan of, but for me it didn't look like it wasn't like a big heavy set. It had some slow burners in there, some of their more, you know, atmospheric stadium-esque tracks with big vocal segments, which is obviously great because Dan's fantastic. But, you know, just from my own personal preference, there was some songs in there that I was a bit surprised by. I was like, okay, right, so this is going to be a little bit interesting now. They obviously kept all of the staples, like the War of Beings, Concealing of Fate, you know, some tracks off of Sonder as well. But just overall, when I looked at the set list as a whole, I was like, okay, this is an interesting an interesting set list, to say the least. But they absolutely smashed it. I mean, like I said, very professional across the board. From fucking Amos to Ackle to James to Dan to fucking, there goes my mic, to, what the fuck is his name? Why am I forgetting his name? Jay, fucking hell, I forgot Jay's name. Yes, across the board, man, they just sounded absolutely fantastic. My personal take on the crowd, I didn't think the crowd was great. It was a bit dead. I've seen TesseracT, or I've seen bands play in Ireland, and there's never been great crowds in Ireland, to be honest. I don't know if it's because the metal scene in Ireland is quite underground and it's not exactly it's not exactly vibrant. There's not a lot of bands that come here. We get like drip fed big production shows, so I don't know if to me that would mean that like when the shows do come, we are like a much better crowd, but it just didn't seem that much energy in the crowd. I mean, there was definitely moments where it really picked up, but overall I just like, and it wasn't to no fault of TesseracT either. I did speak to Dan after the show and he was mentioning that it wasn't their best performance. That was the first thing he kind of mentioned to me. He was like, you've seen us on the worst night, and I was kind of surprised by that. And then that just kind of made me think about the crowd, and I was like, you know what, the crowd did feel a little bit dead at times, especially for a city that's been starved of these shows for so long. You'd think that it would be a bit more chaotic, but that was just my own personal take on it. It did seem a little bit dead, but a fantastic show nonetheless. And then they kind of led us on to after the fact. Again, I don't want to be that guy that like sits around and just like tries to be a little Klingon and put cameras in people's faces and be really annoying, because I'm sure they get that all the time. So it's just kind of like go with the flow. I'm not expecting any special treatments because I make videos on the internet, but obviously speaking back and forth with the guys, like about 25 minutes before Dan went on stage, he'd messaged me on Instagram and he was like, did you get in okay? And I'm like, bro, focus on the fucking show, man. Like the fact that he was even like thinking about sending me a message was like really, really nice. And that kind of threw me off a little bit. I was like, bro's texting me like before he goes on stage, like forget about me, whatever about me getting in. But then after the fact, obviously the place was full when people were leaving, when the last track was played by TesseracT. I was going to get my jacket and I hear someone calling my name. It was like, Drew. And I was like looking around, I was like, where the fuck? And then I look up and it was Manuel up top and he was calling me. So I was like, oh shit. And I was like, right, I'll come up to you. And then he kind of like met me halfway coming down the stairs, and then Dan came out as well, because Dan had messaged me saying, ask me did I want to come backstage, and I was messaging him back and I was like, yeah, like how do I get there, because I didn't have my pass anymore because I lost it. Not that the photo pass would have gotten me backstage anyway, but I had like no credibility at all. Like, so the security guys were like, where the fuck do you think you're going? And so caught up with Manuel, then we met Dan as well. They got stuck for a few pictures, and then we ended up going backstage for a little bit, just having a chat. Again, I didn't want to be that guy. I was like very happy to be in there. Went backstage, met some of the lads, met Jay, just very briefly, just saying hello. I haven't ever spoken to Jay, so there was not really much there. But myself and Ackle had spoken a couple times back and forth, so it was nice to meet Ackle as well. Didn't get a chance to say hello to James or Amos. I didn't see Amos backstage, but I seen James kind of like walking in and out. I was like fucking staring up at the bloke. He's about 9 foot tall. So yeah, we chatted to the boys. Then the other lads from Unprocessed came in as well. I think it's Leon and David, the bass player and the drummer. I didn't speak to their other guitarist. I think it's Christoph or Christopher. I'm useless with names, but the two lads came in. Speaking to Manuel, then Dan sat down for a bit, and yeah, we all just fucking chatted, man. It was nice, There can always be like an element of like being a little bit starstruck, but honestly, I was fine. The lads were so accommodating and so what's the word I'm like, the hospitality was beautiful, man. Like, they really didn't make me feel uncomfortable. They brought me in, we had a beer, we just chatted about things. Again, I didn't want to keep them waiting for too long. I didn't really know what the plan was because I knew it was their last show, and they were, Dan had kind of mentioned that they've all been sick, and they, Dan was saying that he felt as though this show wasn't their best show throughout the tour. But to me, I didn't really notice it at all. So I didn't really know which way it was going to go. Like, I was planning on, if they wanted to go for a drink, I'd go with them, but I wasn't, again, completely like not clinging on or anything like that, because there's just nothing worse than people that are like that. So, I was happy to just chill and chat with the boys, catch up for a little bit, and they all had to like catch a ferry at like 2 a.m, which would mean they'd have to like be on the bus by probably like midnight. So yeah, I understand, like, man, there obviously a lot of traveling ahead, and at the end of the show, I think a lot of people might think that the like rock star lifestyle would be something that, let's go out and fucking get shit faced and go party. But, I think they were all just happy to just kind of have a chill beer and, be ready to go back and get home to their families and, get back to somewhat of a normal life. Because, fair fucking play to them, man. The touring life, I can only imagine, is very, very rough on the body, physically and mentally. you know, especially just hearing Dan say how much, you know, how many of them were sick. So yeah, I mean, an absolutely unbelievable experience. Again, it was great to actually just go in and like finally say hello to the lads, because again, I've been a follower of the band for 3-4 years now, and I've been like covering content on the band for that time as well. Obviously Unprocessed not as long, but the lads were just as fucking nice. It honestly felt like I'd known Unprocessed for like as long as I've known TesseracT. The lads were just so nice, so down to earth, just easy to chat to. And again, Dan, fucking gent, you know, going out of his way to make sure I was all sorted for guest lists. You know, that was all sorted when I got to the door. I didn't even have to worry about anything. And then the fact that he's like messaging me before the show, before he goes on stage, and then, you know, just even calling me back in to go and have a chat, you know, behind the scenes, because, you know, they don't have to do that, man. You know, they really don't have to do that. You know, I'm just another guy who makes videos on this band from another city that they're touring, of the like 30 or 40 cities that they've done over the past couple months. There's no need for them, and they're at the end of their tour as well. They probably just want to not see anyone and just go to sleep, but then they're bringing me in. So, you know, I try to respect that as much as I can and not take those moments for granted. So, an amazing experience as always. You know, can't say I'm surprised by how good they were live, because, you know, I've been told endlessly how good they are live, and they definitely lived up to it, and so did Unprocessed. But yeah, that's gonna be, I think, everything. Hopefully the clips and the footage that I have, you know, was a nice substitute for me talking. I might b-roll some stuff. I might throw in some clips to substitute, you know, me talking, and actually play the volume, you know, play the actual mix. But I don't have like a microphone on my camera, so I don't think the audio is going to sound great out of the actual camera itself. But yeah, that's all from me, lads. If you did enjoy the video, please do let me know by leaving a like. Obviously, any other opportunities that arise where I can actually go and see bands, you know, I can do some content around that. I will be doing some content around that, and I'll always try and get some videos out for you guys, because again, I always like to do these videos for those people that are living in cities that maybe don't get to see as many bands as the likes of the UK and Ireland. Even though Ireland don't get a lot, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I know it's a lot easier for bands to go to the UK, and logistically Ireland is a bit out of the way. So I kind of understand being from a country that doesn't really get a lot of shows, so it's nice to like actually take in the moment when they do arrive. And part of me likes to do these videos because I understand that some people who are as big of a fan as bands as I am are from countries who are a little bit less fortunate for, you know, actually getting these shows, because, you know, the whole come to Brazil thing, you know, Brazil being another country that doesn't really get a lot of shows, and then there's a lot of other you know, cities in Europe that wouldn't get shows. So these videos are really like kind of tailored towards obviously the entire audience, but also mainly those countries that, you know, don't actually get an opportunity to go and experience these bands live. So I try to allow you guys to like live vicariously through my videos. So yeah, if you do like this style, obviously let me know in the comments. If you think I should do something a little bit different or change things up, then, you know, I'm all ears. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, that's all from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. Thank you so much for TesseracT, or to TesseracT and Unprocessed, for being such good sports and, you know, making me feel at home, you know, in my own country, you know. It was absolutely unbelievable to finally see them live, and I'm sure there's loads of things I'm forgetting, but I just want to get this video out. And yeah, hope you enjoyed, lads. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.